Alright, in this video, I want to help you guys out with your summer reading, the Poisonwood Bible. Now, if you were like me when I was in high school and I got assigned a 500 and some page book, I'd be freaked out. Like, oh my god, I gotta read a 500-page book in summer. What's wrong with this? My book just broke. What I ended up noticing is that even in high school, I liked this book. It was different to me. It offered a strange perspective that I wasn't thinking of, and it made me think. Now, I'm assigning it because it really deals a lot with the elements of fiction that we'll go over in class and that you've already learned through high school English. It'll go over and focus really on point of view because almost every single chapter or every single subdivision of the book is being told by a different character, the Price daughters, and the mother is kind of framing the story and putting it together. Framing by the sense of she's the one that starts off the book and kind of introduces us to all the characters. But then the point of view is each character is going to be saying things differently. Each character is going to speak different. Each character is going to have their own perspective, their own personality. And that goes into characterization, which is another element of fiction that we'll have to cover. So already this book is going to focus a lot on getting you to look at point of view and characterization. Because when one character is describing another character to you, you know that that could be indirect characterization. Now, other elements, you're definitely going to have plot, right? You're definitely going to have symbolism with a bunch of stuff in the book, and you're going to have a lot of allusions. Now, the allusions bring up another point that I want to talk about, and that's background information. You need to know that the Congo is unstable politically. So in many ways, this is also a political book. It's an environmental book. And it's also just a good book. It's kind of a historical fiction book, but what I mean by the Congo being unstable is through its history, it's been severely mistreated, and it's also not been able to be self-sustained. In the 1800s to early 1900s, King Leopold II of the Belgian government decided that he would appropriate the land, take it for himself, and control it. But he didn't control it as a part of his Belgian territories. He controlled it solely by himself. He was the main guy in charge. He was really the only guy in charge. And whatever he wanted to do with that land and those people, he thought that he could do. Who mutilated children, sometimes for fun, who went in and pillaged villages, raped women, stole children, made slaves, and took all the valuables for themselves. And they did whatever they wanted for years and years and years, to where eventually people caught wind of it. In 1908, he decides to give up the Congo, and it becomes officially a colony of the Belgian government. Things may have gotten a little bit better, but not really. You see, colonization, you know a lot from American history, of America wanting independence from Great Britain, from England, and them eventually getting it. And you know that because England mistreated America by taxing them heavily, by not giving them representation, yada, 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 right? Now, this was happening in other parts of the world, too. England was a great colonizer. Portugal colonized a lot of places. Spain colonized a lot of places. And so did the Belgian government. So the Belgian government ended up making a colony out of the Congo. Now it's part of Africa, and Africa is huge, and the Congo is huge as well. Now, even though they got it as a colony, you need to know that even if people have good intentions for creating a colony, ultimately it does kind of come down to selfish needs because they want something out of that colony. It's not just, oh, let's set up this place and plant our flag and it's ours and yeah, we're going to treat it great. Usually the reason why they set it up is to help the mother country, which is you're setting up a colony and you're taking everything and all the resources of that colony to really just benefit yourself. And you're like, well, what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with it is now you're hurting the colony. And ultimately, that's why America didn't like being a colony, because they were exporting all their goods to England for a super cheap price. And meanwhile, England's taxing up the wazoo America, and it's hurting the American colonies to where they cannot grow, they cannot become rich and successful, but their mother country is getting all the benefits. And a very similar thing, but at a much higher level, was happening with the Belgian government and the Congo. And so the Congo is dealing with that with years and years and years until around 1960, pretty much overnight, those European powers left. The Belgian government left. They just abandoned the Congo. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's a good thing. They're gone. The Congo people can be free. They can be themselves. They can be independent. And yes, that's good, but the problem is there was no infrastructure. There was nobody there with a good education. Most of the people were illiterate. Nobody knew about leadership experience. It's not like a bunch of people were in internship programs and were taught what to do. It was just kind of left to them. Because now that the Belgian government's gone, now that all these European white powers are out of their hair, which they might be happy about, they were left with no skills. They were left with no education. They were left with no training. They were not prepared for that, especially happening overnight, to be decolonized just like that. And so now you have a situation where there's going to be different factions coming up with the Congo, and it's a huge place. Nobody knows how to take control of it all, even though they're going to try and ultimately fail. And they're going to try to find ways to cast off all the Europeanness of the country and fill it again with African pride, to fill it again with Congo pride, to fill it again with their native tongue and their native languages, to change names back, to change the names of cities. But that's after our book. Remember that this book is starting out in 1959. Now, 1960 is when the country became super unstable because the European powers up and left overnight, and that left the Congo decolonized and independent, seemingly in one day, pretty much. But it's going to be very unstable and very much full of violence and resentment towards Europeans. So it's going to be unsafe for people to be there. But then you're also going to have a bunch of tribal warfare going on. So that's ultimately what you need to know in terms of the background of the book. Going along with that, I need to share two concepts with you very briefly. This is not going to be an in-depth, exhaustive thing, so you need to do more research on your own, but very briefly I want to share with you what postcolonialism is. Now, just by the word, you know post and you know colonial, so it's going to be after colonies, right? After colonialism. So it's ultimately dealing with what happens after some country leaves a place decolonized, like the Congo or like America. What happens in that country's culture? What happens to that country when their colonizing power is no longer there? Now, post-colonial literary theory deals a lot with looking at the colonizing powers and how they influence and ultimately screw up, mess with, and hurt the minority culture that was usually already there. So it might look at some country like Haiti and see how Haiti was colonized and how they dealt with the decolonization. It might deal with somebody like America and what happened after England left and what happened while England was here that hurt American culture, right? In which ways was England shoving their culture onto their colonies, right? Which were very different and across an entire ocean. And it might look at a book like this with the Congo and deal with how did the Congo people in the book react to and appreciate, or really not appreciate, these missionaries coming into their country, these white Europeans being in their country. So post-colonialism really just gets to look at the colonizing power and how they screw things up for the minorities. The second concept is ecocriticism. Ecocriticism is another lens of literary theory which looks at, very similarly to post-colonialism, how a majority power influences not just another people, but in this case, the natural world, nature. So in that sense, it's tied to post-colonialism because if you're looking at it to try to make a bit of a allegory, I guess you could say, we'd be the colonizing power, me, you, the rest of mankind, and the earth, nature, the world, the plants, animals, all of that would be the minority power who are being affected by the colonizing power. And in what way are we hurting them? Well, you could say things like what's happening right now with everybody freaking out about straws. Don't use straws because you'll kill turtles, when really it's about plastic. Well, we've really screwed up the natural world a lot of the times. Look up some of those videos of oil spills, of plastic and garbage being thrown out into the ocean, and how fish and different types of wildlife dying because of that. We knock down entire forests to build homes and to build companies. We put harmful toxins up into the air. So ultimately, we're the colonizing power that's making the rest of the natural world, all these plants and animals, bow down to us and make them serve us. And that's ecocriticism. So look at that in the book. Look at post-colonialism of how people groups are being influenced by the European powers or by the Price family, who in this case is an American family, but how they're being influenced by usually the white people and how they're reacting to them, of these cultural norms that are going on. Look at how the Price daughters go into the Congo and what they think of the world. Do they see it as just a third world country that has no merit at all and that America is the only place that is good? And then also look at ecocriticism, because the book starts off with a lot of imagery about the natural world. And Africa is full of the natural world of plant and animal life. So look at all of that, because Barbara Kingsolver is very well known for crafting books that have a lot to do about nature and how mankind often screws it up as kind of the colonizing power there. So look at those things. I know it's a lot to take in with only a little bit of information, but hopefully the background information teamed up with those two literary theories that you can look more into will set you up for success while reading the book.